Welcome back to Morning Kickoff Show. I'm your host, Matt Witt. The Minnesota Vikings win yet again in the last second of the game. Minnesota Vikings 28, New Orleans 25. Back-to-back weeks, Kirk Cousins has led this Minnesota Vikings team to game-winning drives after having a mediocre performance in the first three quarters. I don't know what is with the inconsistency in our quarterback, but as long as we come up with a victory at the end of the day, we're going to just forget about the three quarters that our quarterback has, because a win is a win. We're 3-1, and we are just getting started. It has only been 4 weeks. We are 3-1, and there's a lot that needs to improve going forward before we can consider ourselves contenders in the NFC. However, 3-1, Minnesota Vikings, first in the NFC North right now because we have the tiebreaker over the Green Bay Packers. First team to ever be 3-0 in London. I mean, this is a great start to the Kevin O'Connell era. You could not have asked for a better start to this season in the Kevin O'Connell era. First team to ever be 3-0 in London. We just showed the UK who the best receiver in the league is, as Justin Jefferson made Marshawn Lattimore his child in this game. Justin Jefferson having a massive bounce back game. Kirk Cousins, 21st career game-winning drive. For some reason, fourth quarter, Kirk Cousins is great. For some reason, Kirk Cousins in October, Kirktober is outstanding. Great start to the Kirktober. Great start to the Kevin O'Connell era. Minnesota Vikings, 28. New Orleans 25. Now, the greatest part of this game. I usually start with bad news, but I have to say this right now. This Vikings special teams is outstanding. I love this new punter. I love Ryan Wright. He has been the MVP for us. I love Greg Joseph, scoring a combined of 16 points. He scored over half of the points for this Minnesota Vikings team in this game. Greg Joseph, 5 for 5 for field goal attempts. Ryan Wright, best punter in the league already. This guy threw a dime on a fake punt, setting up a Greg Joseph field goal. Chris Boyd got a turnover on special teams, setting up another Greg Joseph field goal. It was all about special teams in this game. Matt Daniels came into this organization to be our special teams coordinator and already looks outstanding. This Viking special teams look great. I still don't like the idea of bringing in Jalen Reagor to be your punt returner, and it hasn't worked so far. I'm waiting to see our punt return game better. But when it comes to looking at our punter and our kicker and our turnovers, I am loving this Minnesota Vikings special teams so far. Now, another victory that came down to the last second when it realistically shouldn't have. Another game against the New Orleans Saints where we got lucky. Okay, I don't know what is with this Minnesota Vikings franchise. We are a cursed franchise, but when we play the New Orleans Saints, for some reason, we're very lucky in the last seconds. Minneapolis Miracle, obviously. Winning the coin toss and winning in overtime in their own stadium in the playoffs. Obviously, in this game, a lot of controversial calls going our way. The New Orleans Saints had over 100 yards of penalty yards given to the Minnesota Vikings that helped us win this game. I don't know if we would have won this game without those penalty yards. I don't know, but realistically, a lot of controversial officiating in this game. Now, I say controversial because, yes, you can argue both sides. Whether the refs throw their flag or not is completely up to the refs, because a lot of these calls can really realistically go either way. I'm not going to really get into officiating. I don't like to blame the ref for winning or losing games, but I will say we did get lucky on a lot of these calls in this game. Not only this, but we played the New Orleans Saints without a lot of their core players on offense. I mean, Jameis Winston was out there starting quarterback. Michael Thomas was out there starting wide receiver. Alvin Kamara, their starting running back. Those are arguably their three best players on offense. On top of this, Andreas P., a stud at left guard, did not play in this game. So 4 core starters on offense, and yet it came down to the last second. Oh, yeah. How about the double doink? We got lucky once again on a double doink against the New Orleans Saints. Now, back onto this. Minnesota Vikings on offense were so up and down all 4 quarters. Once again, our Minnesota Vikings offense could not ever finish in the red zone. I believe we got to the red zone. We had 6 times we got to the red zone and only scored a touchdown on 2 of them, or 1 of them. I don't remember what the statistic was, but what I can say is this Minnesota Vikings red zone offense should not be this bad. We have too many playmakers on offense to be able to not score more touchdowns when we get trips to the red zone. We set up great drives and never finish. We just set up field goals every time, which, I mean, I have Greg Joseph on my fantasy team, so I'm fine with setting up field goals, but I would like to see my Minnesota Vikings score touchdowns more. Not only this, but on third down, Minnesota Vikings once again, 36% on third down. It's like, I can't put a reason to why these statistics are happening with this Minnesota Vikings team. We have one of the best receiving cores in the entire league, if not the best. Justin Jefferson, monster. If you're not going into him on third down, if you're not looking at him in the red zone, I don't know what you're doing. But if he's double covered, which we've seen many times, we have Adam Thielen, the best receiver over the age of 30. We have KJ Osborne, a rising star on this offense. Irv Smith Jr., who is a freak of an athlete. Probably wouldn't want to go to him on third down, but they did it yesterday and it worked on one of the drives. So I guess you can try to fit Irv Smith Jr. more into this offense. Minnesota Vikings, we have too many playmakers on offense to be 36% on third down and also not scoring in the red zone when they make trips to the red zone. Don't understand what that is, but on top of this, Minnesota Vikings offensive line had a bad day, and I'm not that surprised. I mean, it is the New Orleans Saints. Their defense is freakishly scary against the pass. But come on, Kirk Cousins had nowhere to go. He had nowhere to go this entire game. He was throwing up short passes, overthrowing his guys, just trying to get the ball out of his hands. On top of this, our run game. What happened to this Minnesota Vikings run game? I mean, I said going into this game, the Vikings had to establish the run early, and they tried to. The New Orleans Saints are not good against the run. Before this game, they were allowing 140 rushing yards per game. 140. We go into London with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison and the Minnesota Vikings moving company, and nobody gets over 4 yards per carry. I don't understand what's with this Minnesota Vikings run game so far this year. I mean, maybe it's that Dalvin Cook's injuries and age is falling him apart. Maybe it's just the way Kevin O'Connell runs an offense is not designed to make Dalvin Cook work, but they tried. They were running a lot of I formation. Dalvin Cook had 20 carries in this game and under 4 yards per carry. Alexander Mattison, 3 carries in this game for a combined 3 yards. That's 1 yard per carry. He had that 15-yard receiving touchdown on a screen pass, which was great to see. But still, Minnesota Vikings are failing to get going in the run game. The Minnesota Vikings are failing to establish the run early, which could end up being an issue because if you are only a pass-heavy team, defenses know that. If you only pass the ball, they are going to play a lot more cover 3. They're going to play a lot more zone coverage. It's not going to be using the run to set up the pass is what's worked for the Minnesota Vikings in the past. I'm tired of seeing the Minnesota Vikings running the ball on first down. It's like everybody knows it's going to happen every time. I want to be more unpredictable for the Minnesota Vikings. And I really can't understand why this Minnesota Vikings run game was not able to get going yesterday. But hopefully going forward, they'll fix what they're doing on offense because we have some great run blockers on this offense. CJ Ham, even Garrett Bradbury's been great at run blocking. Terrible in pass protection, but he's been great at run blocking. Ezra Cleveland, same story. We have some great run blockers, and we have some great running backs. So the reason why it doesn't make sense why the Minnesota Vikings run game has been this inconsistent this year. Minnesota Vikings receiving game, like I mentioned, Justin Jefferson once again. Gosh, just absolutely showed London who the best receiver in the league is, as this man is a beast. Justin Jefferson, 10 receptions for 150 scrimmage yards and a rushing touchdown. First rushing touchdown of his career. Now, Jefferson did have a couple passes that went through his hands. One was thrown behind him from Kirk Cousins, so not really Justin Jefferson's fault. Usually we see him make those catches. It wasn't his catch radius. However, it was thrown behind. And then we also saw one go through his hands. So Justin Jefferson, obviously a monster. He gets open. He makes a play. He's great after the catch. He has great hands. But so far this year, he has been shut down in a couple of games, and he's had a couple drop passes. But you know who hasn't? Adam Thielen. Old reliable. Adam T.D. Lynn. Adam Hometown Thielen. Adam Old Reliable Thielen. Whatever you want to call him. He is such a fun player to watch on this Minnesota Vikings offense. He's the guy I want to go to on third down. He's the guy I want to go to in the red zone. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why the Minnesota Vikings are so bad on third down so far this year and so bad in the red zone, is because they're not looking at Adam Thielen all the time. That was our go-to guy the last few years. This Adam Thielen and Kirk Cousins connection has worked for the Minnesota Vikings. I believe we should design more plays for him in the red zone. He's reliable. He catches everything. He's our guy. Adam Thielen, 8 receptions, 72 yards. Have a great day. Have a good day. I'd like to see him get some more reads in the red zone. It'd be nice. And then now moving on to the defensive side of the ball. I mentioned this Minnesota Vikings offense. Minnesota Vikings offense had a bounce back day. Kirk Cousins, fourth quarter, making us forget his first 3 quarters because I don't know what is with this guy. He is so clutch at the fourth quarter. I don't understand it. Could someone with better football knowledge please explain what is wrong with Kirk Cousins? Why he is so inconsistent? And this is not my opinion. This is a fact. Kirk Cousins is very inconsistent. Why is it that in 2 weeks he has a bad first half and for some reason the fourth quarter just flips a switch and he's outstanding? I don't get it. I don't understand. Is it something to do with his confidence? Is it something to do with his ego? I don't understand what is with it. But Kirk Cousins, put a chip on this guy's shoulder every game. Do something to push this guy to be fourth quarter Kirk Cousins all day game long. Maybe it's October again. I mean, I know that Kirktober is back and he's started off Kirktober strong. I don't know. Put a chip on this guy's shoulder. Do something to make Kirk Cousins have that mentality he had in the fourth quarter all game long, all 4 quarters. Whatever you have to do, Kevin O'Connell, find that in Kirk Cousins, please. Minnesota Vikings defense, moving on to the defensive side of the ball. Defense in the first half, outstanding. This Minnesota Vikings defense in the first half only allowed 82 yards to the New Orleans Saints offense and only allowed 1 touchdown. And that 1 touchdown was not because of the Vikings defense. That 1 touchdown was because of Kirk Cousins' bad interception. Because like I mentioned, in the first half did not have a great performance and held them to 3 3-and-outs in this game. On top of this, sacked Andy Dalton twice in the first half, and one of those being a strip sack with Harrison Phillips and Dalvin Tomlinson. This Minnesota Vikings defense in the first half was great. Also, Lewis Cine. Sucks to see. I'm huge on Lewis Cine. I love this guy. I want to see him succeed, and it's so sad that he had to get carted off with a bad leg injury and brought to the hospital. I hope he's traveling back with the team. I hope he can do well. Please, Lewis Cine, rest up, man, because I want to see this player succeed. I love him so much, and I wanted to see him give a bigger workload this week, and it sucks to see him get injured in the first half. On top of this, Danielle Hunter. He's a no-show. Danielle Hunter is on the field basically the entire time and not impacting any play, it feels like. I'm sorry. This is a hard conversation to have. I know all of us love Danielle Hunter, but let's be honest. He hasn't done anything this year. And this could be due to a few different things. Obviously, last 2 years, played a combined 7 games. Coming off of some serious injuries and surgeries that he had could possibly impact his game this season. The matchups that he had to go against. Obviously, these offensive lines, these last 3 offensive lines he had to go against. Great. Understandable why that could be the issue, why Danielle Hunter is playing bad. Could it be the new defensive scheme? Could it be because Danielle Hunter is standing up on a lot of his pass rushers instead of playing hands in the dirt? Could it be because he's playing in a 3-4 this year and not a 4-3? I don't know what it is with Danielle Hunter and why, for some reason, he has been a no-show the last 3 games. And even so much so in the first game against Green Bay. What is going on with Danielle Hunter? Please explain, because there's a lot of different reasons why Danielle Hunter could be having a bad start to this year. I'm just hoping it gets better going forward because I love this guy. And then into the second half, I just mentioned how great the Vikings defense was in the first half. Second half, the Saints got the better of this Vikings defense in both the pass and the run game, as Latavius Murray, for some reason, at the age of like 30-something, is still a beast. Latavius Murray just tore through our defense. Outstanding. But hey, Minnesota Vikings, at the end of the day, we came up with the victory. Minnesota Vikings are 3-1 and first in the division. We need to have things figured out by November. We have 2 more games in October so far because we have the bye week as well. We have 2 games in October. I need to see progression from this Minnesota Vikings team. You got very lucky these last 2 games with the double doink this last one, and then obviously the controversial calls going our way, and then also the Detroit Lions game. We got lucky these last couple games and a lot of injuries. Even in the Detroit Lions game, DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown were limited. We've been getting very lucky these last 2 games, and it's great that we're 3-1. It's amazing that we're 3-1 with 3 wins being NFC opponents and 2 of them being divisional opponents. And we get the Bears next week, another divisional opponent. We need to see some progression going forward because right now the Vikings might have one of the best records in the league. Do we look like NFC contenders right now with the mistakes that we've been making, the opportunities that we have not been able to capitalize on these last couple of weeks, last 3 weeks, I mean to say, I don't know if we do, especially with how tough the Eagles are looking and some other teams in the NFC are looking right now. I don't know if we look like contenders. What I do know is that we're off to the right track, though. 3-1, a lot can improve going forward. We have so much talent on offense, and I'm so excited to see this Vikings team, how they can improve these next couple of weeks that we have in October. Kirktober, baby. He's back. Kirktober. Kirk in noon games and earlier games. Kirk, fourth quarter Kirk. Why can't this guy just play like that? If Kirk Cousins could play like he does in the fourth quarter all game long, this guy would win MVP. There's no debating it. He would win MVP. If he could just be that fourth quarter Kirk Cousins, that Kirk Cousins with that chip on his shoulder all game long, every game of the season. I don't know how we can get that out of him. Is it a mentality thing? Or I don't understand what it is. Maybe he's just that inconsistent. And this is not, like I mentioned, this is not my opinion. This is facts. I don't understand why. I'll say something bad about Kirk Cousins and then people will get mad. I'm like, sometimes it is my opinion. Usually, it's not my opinion. The numbers say for themselves. We'll just say that. Okay, player of the game for the Minnesota Vikings, like I mentioned, Greg Joseph, just an absolute beast. Scored a combined 16 points for this Minnesota Vikings. Over half of the team points from Greg Joseph. Got my fantasy team 18 points from a kicker. 5 for 5 from field goals. 1 for 2 from extra point attempts. Missed an extra point attempt perfectly fine, though, because he redeemed himself with the game-winning field goal. Greg Joseph, an absolute beast. I'm so happy for this Minnesota Vikings special teams because I didn't know that this Vikings special teams was going to be this great. I'm going to be honest. I thought our special teams was going to take a step back from last year. No, this special teams is looking like the best it's looked like in years. Next week, the Minnesota Vikings will travel. No, we have a home game. Another divisional home game. The Minnesota Vikings will host the Chicago Bears Sunday, 12 o'clock on Fox. 12 o'clock Central Time, that is. This would be our third and final home divisional game of the season after we beat the Packers and we beat the Lions at home. Now we're going to hopefully beat the Bears at home, and we would have all 3 of our home divisional games over with early on in the season, and then we're going to be going on the road against all these 3 teams later in the season. So massive game for the Vikings. If we can win all of your home divisional games, that's huge. Minnesota Vikings are 7-point favorites in this game and would be huge. Would be great to win your third and final home game. Minnesota Vikings 3-1, first in the division. 2023 NFL championship game, NFL Super Bowl will be there. Let me know, Joe.